Welcome back, great minds. Here is another section in our CSS Beginner tutorial series. We'll be looking at CSS colors, backgrounds, and how to work with charts, right? So without wasting time, let's get started. All right, so here is what we want to build briefly, right? So you will notice that we have colors here, right? More like color gradients. So what we have here is darker than what we have here, right? Then aside that, I also want to show you the different flexibilities that we have when it comes to the use of colors, right? Then the use of graphs too, right? How to work with graphs, and then background images, right? How to work with background images. This is just an example of what we want to build, right? In order to actually demonstrate what we will be learning. So, okay, yeah. So, like I've said, we want to build a personal finance dashboard, right? Just to demonstrate what we'll be learning. So the design is going to show you, we're going to be focused on how to work with colors. I'm going to show you different ways of working with color, the use of hexadecimal values, RGB, and HLS values, right? Then I'm going to also show you how to work with background properties, right? Using gradient pattern and images. Then I'm also going to show you of course, in this particular project, we're also going to work with typography, but the focus today is not typography. That was what we did in the previous section, right? You might need to check that out if you want to look at, if you want to take a look at how to work with typography. Then Flexbox and grid layout for organizing content. Of course, in this project, we're going to use the mix of Flexbox and grid, right? We've done Flexbox already and we've done grid already. So this just allows you to actually see how to use them again. All right. So the way I want to do this is I'm going to deal with the um I'm going to deal with the what's it called now. I'm going to have to deal with the HTML first. So I'm just going to start building without wasting time. Then I'll come back to some explanations that I have to make, right? So without wasting time, let's just get into this. So this is the project. You can see that I've created a folder just like I've been doing, right? And I have this empty stuff in there, right? Index.html, which is the file that the browser will pick up as the home file, right? Then we have the CSS that's meant to style our project, right? So here I'll just generate that boilerplate code, right? To start with. And here we can quickly have let's just call this finance tracker, right? So I want us to build the HTML first, then we'll move into the other side of things, which is the CSS, right? So for the finance tracker, I will need okay, let's just say I will need the link, right? So let me just quickly show you that. I know by now you already know how to work with that. So I'll just say Google Fonts, right? Just to copy the URL. So those are some of the things that you don't need to cram. You just need to be aware of them. And I think I already have it selected, right? I already demonstrated how to select fonts here, right? Combination of fonts. And here I have the combination of fonts selected in the last project. I'll just be picking that, right? Get embed. And this gives me what I actually need. So the choice is yours, right? Just like I've said before, you can choose to use it this way, right? Or the other way. So let me just use the art import in this case, right? The art import in this case, so that will leave. So let me put it here, because if it's art import, then it needs to go into the CSS and not the HTML, right? So you can just add the body here and nothing there. Let's just say background color of this, just to be sure that this page is connected, right? So the next thing we need to do is to actually connect this page, right? Using the link element, right? And we can just say dot slash pointing to that. It's in the same directory with the index.html. That's why we're using dot slash, right? Meaning the current directory. So that's it. If I were to launch this now, just to test this quickly, that things are connected. So I should see that background. Yeah, so you can see, right, the background is applied, so which means that we are ready to go. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we can just start building. Other things that are needed, I'll talk about them eventually, but for now I think we're ready to go. So we'll start with the let's say header section, right? we start with the header section, and don't forget this is what we are building, right? So there is the header section here. This is the header section. So the entire the other part will be the main section. Then we have the footer section, right? If you don't understand this, these are some of the things that we've dealt with when we're doing the HTML, right? Sectioning your application page, right? So this is the footer section. Every other thing in between is the main section, right? And this is the header section, and that's what I want to use. All right. So here we'll have the header element. It's just right to do that because that is what we are dealing with. So we have the header element, and then inside that header element, we are going to have heading 1, right? And which is just going to say finance tracker, right? And then down that we are going to have list of items. That's what I'm using now, right? If you check here, you can see we have this a list of items. So whenever you have list of items, it is just right to put them inside navigation elements. So then since they are list of items, right, in the navigation, I'm going to use UL, right? Inside that UL, we are going to have LI, and inside those LI, right, we have links because you can click on this and they will take you somewhere, right? So that's why they're actually in anchor element. So anchor element, and this is okay, let's just deal with this first. Let's just say this is going to be the overview. So I'm going to use hash here, hash overview. That's because the overview section is going to be having an ID, right, called overview. And this will just allow me to be able to navigate to those sections when I click them, like more like self-navigation, not like we are going outside this platform. For instance, now if I click on overview, you can see that it brings me here. If I click on analytics, it takes me down. If I click on transactions, right? So just by using that hash the ID name, right, you'll be able to move through these sections on that same page. So take note of that, hash overview. Down there, when I get to the overview section, I'm going to have ID of exactly overview, right? So we have 3 items there. I can also do the same thing here and do the same thing here, right? Just to rename what I have there. The next one is transactions, right? I just say transactions, and this is going to also be transactions. Then the last one is analytics, right? And this is just going to be analytics. All right. So overview, transactions, analytics. So I think that's just it. The other section here too, we need to have a class on it, right? So that we can target that. So I'm going to have a class that is named app header. All right. So that's it with the header section. I think what we need left there is just the styling, right? Then we also have the main section. So let's just also write the HTML for that. Since it's the main section, we'll wrap it in the main elements, right? If you don't understand the proper use of HTML, check my HTML series, right? Here we are just going to have inside the main section, we have the balance overview, right? We have the balance overview. And just like I mentioned already, that is going to be a section, right? And it's going to have an ID. It's going to have an ID of exactly overview, right? That's why I have hash overview here, so that when I click on it, it will bring me to this overview section, right? If you don't do it that way, it won't work. So you have to map it properly. Then okay, let's give this a class name, right? So that we can easily target that too. We just say balance overview, right? Then inside that section, I need a div, right? This is what we are trying to start. So you can see the card now. You can see that it's a card. So everything there is inside a div. Even though I already have a section, it's just because I'm not setting the background color. You would have seen that it spans from here to here, right? There's now a small card with a set width and height that is centered right here. So so we have a div here, and that div is going to be having a class of balance card, right? So inside that balance card, we're going to have heading 2, and we're just going to say current balance, right? And down here, we are going to have a paragraph element, and it's just going to have a class of amounts, right? And we are going to have the dollar sign. Let's just say 12,450, right? $00. So then we can have another paragraph element that says that captures the last updated, right? Last updated. Just say January 6, 2025, right? So if you check here, these are just the things I'm trying to equal. And if you come to our page, right, it's just there, but it's not styled, right? Which is why we are learning CSS, because you can see that HTML alone does not, it provides a building block, but it does not really add beauty to what we have. So then I'm done with that section now, I believe. So we can move away from that section to the analytics section. So still inside the main, don't forget we are still inside the main. We have 3 sections. We've done the header, we are in the main, and inside the main we have different subsections, right? Then lastly we are going to have the footer apart from the main. So here, let's say we have analytics section. So I'm also doing it this way so that it's best practice. Anybody that sees your code, right, will be able to easily follow through and all that. So comments are very important. So here we are going to have again, in order to be able to come to this section by clicking on the navigation menu, I'm going to say ID of analytics, right? It must be exactly what you have here, so that when you click on here to bring it to that section, right? And here we'll have okay, let's just say class 2, class of analytics. Then inside that section we have heading 2, and we're just going to say monthly spending, right? Monthly spending. Then down here again, this is what we are dealing with, so just so that you can follow right here. Then we now have this section where we have the graph. So the graph, I will bring in the graph last, right? So for now, just write the HTML, then we'll style it, and the graph will come in last because we're going to be using a library for that. So here we are going to have a div, right, which would be like the parent container where the graph will go into, this div here, right? And we just say the div is going to be a class of analytics charts, right? Class of analytics charts. Then class of analytics charts. Then we are going to have a div, right, like a container div for the chart. Now we're going to say class of chart container. So that is where the chart will go into, right? Chart container. Then we have on the charts container, we are going to have, I will come back to that part. Okay, let's just set it now anyway. So I'm going to have canvas because it's more like we are drawing into a canvas, right? So then inside that canvas, we are going to set the target ID. JavaScript is going to use this ID to inject the graph item into that canvas, right? Or let's just say to draw on that canvas, right? So we are going to call it expense chart, or let's just say expenses chart, right? So we are going to use JavaScript to target here and populate our data, right? That has to do with analytics chart into this canvas. So this is like drawing on a canvas, right? Your graph. So, but you're not the one that's going to be doing, you're going to prepare the data, right? And the library will take care of all the mapping and all that. So then after that, I think we have another one. So this is more like duplicating what I have here. So I also want another one like this because we have two, right? And this one is going to be, instead of chart content, okay, it's going to be chart container because we want the same class. We just want to style it once so that it applies to the two, right? But what we are targeting or to write into the canvas is going to be the spending trend chart, right? Just a spending trend chart, right? That's talking to the second one, right? This is the pie chart and this is the line chart. So then once we have that, so we have, just look at the structure. We have a div, right, that houses these two guys, right? So this one, the each each graph is inside a container. So we are going to be able to have control over the width and the height of that container. That's what we are using. We are placing inside a div, right? So with CSS, we can limit the width and height here. Then we'll draw into these canvas, and we are doing that by targeting the ID. So this ID is different from here, right? So because you need to understand the structure before you start styling and before you start doing things, so that you'll not be confused. So that's that with that section, right? And we can now go to the transactions section. All right. So for the transaction section, let's say section again, and it's going to just have an ID, just like we've been doing, an ID of transactions, right? And we're also going to have class of transactions, so that we can have control over that section in terms of styling, right? Then once we have that, in that section, we are going to have a div, right? I'm going to have a div, and inside that div, I'm going to have heading 2, right? And we're just going to have recent transactions there. So because it's not all transactions that are listed there, it is normal to have another link, right, that allows you to actually see all the transactions if you so choose to. So this is what I'm saying. You can see that here we have recent transaction, and then we have view all. So usually that's how it is done, because it is not all the transactions that are listed here, right? So I'm placing it in a div so that I can use Flexbox, right, to justify between, so that they can be spaced apart like this, right? And so here I'm going to have an anchor element, right? It goes nowhere. I'll just put hash here, right? And here we're going to say view all. So that's it. And here we just target, I'll use CSS to target this. We don't need to place a class on it, right? Then the other one is the UL, because inside there you will notice that we have list of items, groceries. So this is UL, list of items, right? And their names with names and their price. You can just use table here, but this works, right? That's why you just need to be aware of the possible options of possible available options when it comes to doing things. Here we have list item, and inside the list item, we are going to have two things. I'm going to use span element, right? So why span cannot be a direct child of UL, right? It's the list is able to be a direct child of this in the way UL works, right? But inside the list, you can put any other element, span, divs, anything, right? So here I'm going to have groceries, right? Groceries. Then I'm also going to have another span element, right? And here I'm going to have negative 150 dot 00, right? So here I'm going to put a class so that we can target this and say this is going to be expense. So I'm using this class so that if you check here, expenses are actually marked red, right? While income are marked green, right? So placing that class on it just allow you to target those elements, right? So all I just need to do is repeat this for the next one. So the next one is salary, and that one is income. So here we just say salary, and this is going to be class of income, right? And this is going to be 3,000. We don't need to put just a 3,000, yeah, dollars. So then we can still do more. So I've just used this again. So here we are going to have electric bill. Let's say electric bill, right? This is going to be expense, and this is going to be, I just say 90, right? Then we can do the last one. Let's say this is coffee, right? Expenses too, and let's just say this is 12, right? So that's what we have there. And I think that's it with that section. If you come here, right, you won't see this is what we have been writing. So you can see that it doesn't look like it. The canvas space is left here already. We're here to start, right? It is CSS that will bring about the beauty. So that's it with that section. I think the last section here is the fixed background section. Just say the fixed background section. So for the fixed background section, we have section 2, right? And I'll just use ID of So just to identify that, uniquely identify that section, I will say ID of fixed background, right? And here we are going to have so the way this is, I just want to show you. So this is all structured so that we can actually practice what we are learning today, called the use of colors, the use of gradients, and the use of backgrounds, right? So you can see that as I hover now, right, the image, there's an image here that looks fixed, right? It looks as though it's scrolling. There's this effect that we are having, right? While we are scrolling, the content on the image scrolls, right, along with direction of scroll, while the image remains fixed. So it gives this beautiful look, right? So we are going to have that. So that's what I'm showing you. The section is going to have a background. Then we are going to have this particular overlay on it, right? So let's also do that. Here we are going to have a div, and that div is going to have a class of content content overlay, right? Content overlay. And here, let's just give this also a class of fixed background, right? So content overlay inside that div, right? We have two things there, right? We have the plan your finance and this text. So that's just what I want there. That plan your finance should be using heading 2, right? And we just say plan your finance. So you can use heading 2 as many time as you want. It's only heading 1, right, that you want to reserve for just one thing that speaks to the most important thing on the page. So here we want to say take control. I don't want to type all this, right? Just copy from here. So just put that here. So I think that's that with that section. Then we'll move outside the main now, right? Everything has been in the main section. And outside the main, then we'll deal with the footer section, right? The footer section. And then we'll just come down and have the footer elements. Right, you see that this thing is simple. If you keep building over and over and over again, for every section we have, I try to build something, right? If you keep doing that, there's no way you will be good. At some points, it will just click and be able to do your thing, right? Here we have class of, let's say class of app. Let's use app footer now, right? Class of app footer, and here we are going to have a paragraph element that just says this short code for copyright and percent copy. This is not $sign and percent copy, right? Then here we can just say 2025. So if you are doing JavaScript, you would actually concept first. You actually generate that dynamically, concept first to mastery, right? Then we can now say all just these things, right? All rights reserved. So that's it with that particular section. Then underneath it, I think I have a paragraph. Underneath it, I have a paragraph, right? And that paragraph is just going to be with links. So inside the paragraph, I'm going to have links. It goes nowhere. And inside it, I'm going to have privacy policy, right? And the second one too, we are going to have, can just put a pipe here. The second one, we're going to have another anchor element that goes nowhere, right? And this one is going to be terms of service, right? So that's it with that. I think if I'm coming back to HTML now, it will be that we want to work on the graph, right? The script for the graph. So I think that's what we have here. You can see that it's pretty simple, but things, you don't just write HTML, right? You carefully look at the design, you interpret it, and you just set up in a way that you'll be able to style easily, right? So now that we are done with this, we can go to the styling of our page. All right, so let's start with let me just label this also, right? General reset. So for the sake of time, I will not do the variable thing today, but don't forget what I told you about the use of roots, right? In order to ensure that you can set roots here, you can say primary, and you just set your color variables here, right? So this could be hash FFF. So I'm not going to do that. I'll just echo the values. But again, okay, let me just set this one. Let's say white, just to show you as an example of how you would do that. So for the general reset, I'm going to be using the universal selector, right, to select all elements and do some reset. And here I want to do reset for margin. So whatever margin has been set by the browser, I want to set it to 0. I don't want any confusion. The same thing for padding, I want to set it to 0, right? And then the box sizing, I want to set it to border box, right? So I've already explained why you need to set this to border box. If you can check the series that we've had together, right? So here, what I want to do next is to set the font size or the font family, right? Font family, set it to, I think I'll be using Roboto, right? Roboto, then fall back to sans serif. So then we can now come to the body, right? For the body, we are going to be setting the color. So I can remove this now, set the color to ash 33333. Now let's see why this will work, right? Because let's say I'm setting this to ash 33A, right? This is supposed to work because this is 1 2 3 4 5 6 and this hexadecimal value, but it's not working. But when I have 3 3, when I have 3 3 3 3 3, right, 3, this is 6 and it's working. This is working, and I can choose to write just 3 instead of writing the 6 values. I can choose to do this and to still work, still be the same thing, right? So we need to, beyond just setting values for color, we need to see the flexibilities that we have around setting the values of color with the use of RGBA, HSL, and other color functions, right, that are available. Let's just do a bit of that because that's why we are here, right? We want to talk about colors, we want to talk about background, and we want to talk about the use of gradient, right? So just before we continue with things, right, let me quickly get us into that. So colors, CSS colors and backgrounds are very fundamental to designing visually appealing app pages. You will see that I showed you this HTML page that we've just worked on, right? It's not fun, it's not beautiful, right? Without the CSS, without the color, without the backgrounds, without the all those things, the visual appeal will not be there, right? That's why you need to understand the use of color and the flexibilities that are made available to you with the available color functions. So the advantage to this is that it allows to customize the appearance of the elements, right? That's why you can see that almost no two websites are the same. There is something that is different with them, either the color branding or the choice of images, choice of the background, or choice of the use of gradient. So you can come up with different things. So it enhances user experience and also defines the mood of your app. So there are times that you see an application, you just fall in love with it because the interface is just sweet and very, very beautiful and elegant, right? So let's talk about color values first. So CSS provides us with multiple ways to define colors. So each method, or what you call functions now, we are not in JavaScript, right, serves different purposes, and I'm just going to show you that. So the different methods that are made available to us when it comes to setting colors gives us flexibility when it comes to design, right? And I will show you why. So let's first of all talk about the X colors, or what we call the hexadecimal color. So you can see that what we have here, the representation here is ash, then with these 6 character values, right? So ash, RR, GG, BB. So if you're wondering what is RR, what is GG, what is BB, you know that colors, the primary colors are red, green, and blue. And it is the mixture of these colors that translate into other color possibilities, right? So that's what we have here. RR here stands for red, green, GG for green, and BB for blue. So it's still using the RGB color model, but these are hexadecimal color representations. And why are we saying that? You can see that RR here, right, is the red value, just like I've said, and it's having these character codes, right, ranging from 00 to FF. That's the reason why you need to understand this. What is 00? What is FF, right? So 00 simply means this is ranging from no red value, right, to fully red value. So that allows you to actually generate different shades of red, right, ranging from 00 no red value to FF full red value, right? So, and that's what I'm trying to do here. 00 means no red value, right? FF means full red value. So that will generate different range of red colors for you. The same thing when you come to the GG, it means it's still having possibility of 00 to FF, which means 00 0 0 here will mean that no green value to fully green value. The same thing with BB, which is blue, no blue value to fully blue values, right? So the other one I was trying to show you, this is the shorthand. Whenever you have same value, right, you can choose to just use the first three instead of this writing out the 6 character code explicitly, right? So that's what I was trying to explain at that time. I used 333 and it worked, and I used 63 and it worked. That's because they are all same values. When you have all same values, RR, GG, BB, right, you can just use shorthand. As a shorthand, you can use the first three, which is still R, G, and B. But when they are different, right, it will not work, just like I've shown you. So you see now that this thing is at the surface, you just think, okay, color property, set it to any. No, you need to understand what you are doing so that you can also know why how you can twist things, right? Then example, you can see here we have FF000. So the implication of this now is FF means fully red, 00 means no green, because don't forget that this second position is for GG, right? Then 00 means no blue. So this is going to generate bright red because it's fully red, no green, no blue, bright red, right? The same thing with this, no red, fully green, no blue. You're going to get bright green. The same thing with this one, no red, no green, fully blue. You're going to get bright blue. So with this combination of different red, green, and blue intensity colors, you can create multiple millions of colors, so to say, right? So that's why you have different shades of colors out there. That's the first one, the use of hexadecimal values. That's very common. That was what I was trying to show you, right, when we were what we're doing just now. Let me quickly go back to that, right, just here. So this is hexadecimal value. I could have just done 3336, right? The first three is for red, the second one is for green, the last one is for blue, and I've already explained what that means. So let's see another possibility, right? Instead of using hexadecimal color, we can also use RGB colors. That's red, green, and blue colors. The hexadecimal color that we just treated, right, use this model. So define colors using this defines color using red, green, and blue values. And this is the function RGB. And you just pass the red value to it, the green value into it, and the blue value into it. Let's see an example. So each value, you also have to take note of this. Each value ranges from 0 to 255. So if you are using 0, 0 is fully black, 255 is fully white. So you can switch in between, right? So let's see examples. Okay. Let me just try to quickly show an example here. All right, so here now, instead of using this, we could have used RGB, right? And inside there, you can see it already giving you the red value. I can set the red value to 0, right? Which is black. Then this one to 0, then this one to 0. So we are setting the blue value to 0. By the time we do this, we are going to get fully black color, right? Fully black. So if I want to twist this too, in fact, there's a way this browser allows you to move these things, right, and also generate colors from here. You can see that as I'm doing this, the value is changing over here. You can see that the value is changing, and as it's changing, you are generating different shades of color, right? So let's just leave it like that. So here we are saying red is 71, blue is 46, green is 46, right? And it's generated this shade of red color. All right, so I want to believe that is clear enough. Then the other one, let's also move ahead. HSL color, right? So the question is, what is HSL? So HSL stands for hue, saturation, and lightness. That's why I said the different color methods that we are given allows us to have flexibility with certain color values, right? So here now, the hue value is the degree of color, and it ranges from 0 to 360, right? Then the saturation, that's the intensity of the color from 0% to 100%. Then the lightness, which is the brightness of the color from 0 to 100% or so. So you can actually, if you're using the HSL color, you have this flexibility of setting a color value through the color wheel, setting the intensity of the color, and setting the brightness of the color, right? So, and this is how to use it. You can see now HSL is a function. In parentheses, you pass, it's explained 3 arguments. The first value is 15, which is the degree of color wheel. The second one is the intensity of the color, the saturation, then the third one is days, right? So if you are setting that here, it's just as straightforward. You just come here and do the same thing, and you're just saying HSL, right? HSL, you can see the hue, the saturation, the lightness. So just like we have there, you can set this to 15, right? Then you can set this to something like 60, let's say 60%, right? Then here you can also set this to, let's just say 50%. So you can see the shade of color that we have there. So if you twist this, you're going to get another shade of color. Let's say 100%, right? So, and let's say this one is 45. So you can see that we get another shade of color, right? So that's it. With you. And what else? Okay, so let's talk about opacity. So there are times that you're using the RGB and the HSL color, and you want to set the opacity or transparency. So you can also set that using the alpha value. So the RGB and the HSL both have the alpha value that can be set. So the alpha value represents the opacity, percentage opacity. So here is saying that we have 70. This color is 7% opaque, right? So that's just what we have here. And if I come back here, you can do the same thing. So instead of setting this, you can just set the HSLA with the alpha value. You can see the alpha value. You set all these and you just point your alpha value. So this can be 0. Is between 0 to 1. So 0.5, that will be 50%, right? So then you can set other values. So this will become very transparent, right? So I think that's that with what I want us to do. Let's quickly set. Okay, I think I will also be doing. I will also need to do background color. Okay, because in what I'm doing now, setting the color, the line height, I'm also going to need to talk about background, right? So let's just do it once and for all, right? Before I start writing all these things, because it's not just all about setting properties. You need to understand what is going on, right? So for the background color, let's just finish on that. Background properties, right? Setting background properties. Backgrounds are used to style the backdrop of elements, right? So we have different elements on the page. It could be a div, right? And all that, and you want a background on them. So maybe you want to insert an image as a background, you want to set a proper background color and all that, you can easily do that. So CSS provide various properties to control how backgrounds are displayed. So whenever you have background colors, right, CSS allow you to actually set how they are going to be displayed. For instance, if you see here, you can see that this is having a background, this section is having the background image, right? And I have different properties set on this image to make it look like this and fit into this, because this image is actually bigger than this, but you can see that it stays inside that container, right? So and we have this transparent overlay also. Let's get back to this. So we have background color, which is the first property that you can set, right? The background color. So this fills the background of an element with a solid color, right? So for instance, can I say background color? Here we're using the hexadecimal color value that we've just talked about, right? So what we can do here is just to practice this, right? I think I've done that already. If I set background color here, I can just say background color and set it to black, right? By the time you come back to this page here, you can see that the background is black. That's what we're talking about. And every other thing on top still keeps their color. So that's one property, background color, right? Let's move on. Then we also have set this background. Okay, that's the background color. I'm done with that. Then the other one is background image, right? Just like you have in the demo project, you can set background image instead of setting color. And usually you set the background color and now have a fallback, right? You set the background image, then have a fallback of the background color. So this sets an image as the background of the element. Example, so you just set it this way. This is how you set the background image. Then this background image is going to take this function or this method, which is URL, right? And the URL function is expecting one argument, which is the link to the element, to the image, right? The link to the image. So before I move on, let's see that. So inside here, I'll keep this background color, right? Let's keep this background color as something that we can relate with, not black. Let's just say blue. Or let's use this, right? So I've said that. Then here I can see set background image, right? I can see set background image. And here you will now use URL, just like I mentioned, and you point to where the image lives. So if the image is in our project, we just point to it // you point to the location of the image, and the image, if the image is posted somewhere, right? So you will also point to the image. Like in my own case, I'm going to be using image that is hosted somewhere. So I'll just go to this Cloudinary, my account, right? I want to copy the link. Let me just copy the link to an image, right, and use it instead of going through the other routes. All right, so Cloudinary allows you to store resources, images, PDFs, videos, right? In case you don't know about it, you can just create an account and you'll be able to store images and other media content. So, right, I'll just come in and just check somewhere here. So I will use this, for instance, I'll just use this. So there's a way you can copy the link directly, copy URL, right? And I'll just bring it here and I'll paste it. So if I come back to here, as you see, so can you see now that we have that as our background image? So that's what I'm saying. And we have control over how this will behave. So if this is not there, or if this is not loading for whatever reason, it's going to fall back to this one, right? Which is best practice. Then away from that, we can also set background position, right? So that this controls the placement of the background image, right? So the possible values, can take keywords. So you can say top, you can say center, bottom, left, and right. You can also set percentages as its value. Maybe 50%, that will be centered, right? If you use 50% to be centered. You can also use pixel. So you can say 10 pixel, 20 pixel. That will be from top left corner, 20 pixel to 10 pixel to 20 pixel. So these are the possible values that you can set, right? And here's an example: background position of center. It's common to use center, right? Just like I've shown you here. If you are using keyword, you can use top, you can use center, you can use bottom, you can use left, you can use right. If you are using percentage, you can use 50%, and all that. So this is what I'm saying. So here you can set background position and you can just say center as keyword, right? Instead of setting center, you can set 50%, 50% in terms of value. And you can also set pixel value, just like I've told you. 50%, 50% will be center too, right? Then if I use 10 pixel, you can also set 10 pixel, 20 pixel, 20 pixel, right? So those are the possible values that you just can play with when it comes to setting. And you can see that the moment I said that, this image shifted a bit. And it's not clear what is going on, right? But it shifted a bit. And there's another thing that's happening here. You can see that it looks as though this is starting all over again. And that's because this image is having repeats by default. So we'll get to that section. So let me also move ahead. So you can see background repeats defines whether the background image should repeat itself, right? So the default value is repeat. So repeats both horizontally and vertically. So it's just that this image you are using now is very big. If it were not to be very big, you will see it repeat multiple times, right? So repeat X. If you want it to repeat along the horizontal axis only, you use repeat X. If you want to repeat along the vertical axis only, you use repeat Y. If you don't want repeat, you say no repetition, right? So in my own case, I want to say no repetition, and I can come back here and just say background repeat property, repeat, and just say no repeat. The moment I save this, if you come back to this page, you see that stuff will be, so can you see now? It's no longer repeating. The other image that is showing here, right, is no longer showing, right? So I will still keep this way because I will also use it to show you the difference between background size when you're setting background size property, right? So you need to play with these things too. Away from background repeat property. Now let's talk about background size. So this is talking about how you want the image to cover the container, right? So whether you want it to just be the exact, you want the exact image width and height to just go into the container and whatever it is stays there, or you want the image to stretch and fill the entire container, right? So define the size of the background image. That's what I'm trying to say. So the keyword here that you use is either contain or cover. You can also use percentage value like 50, 50, 100 pixel and all that. Example, background size, cover, right? Cover will mean that the image should fill everywhere, right? It should fill the entire container. Contain will mean that it should keep its aspect ratio, right? And not fill into the entire container. So if I were to come back here and set background size, let's say of cover. So let's see the behavior here. So you won't even notice it, right? Because of the way we have this set up, right? But when I get to the other one, I think you'll be able to see it properly. Then you can also, instead of cover, you can set contain, right? You can set contain. So you can see that you can see that we now have the exact size of this image here, right? And it does not fill the entire container. But when I set it to cover, right, it means, okay, let's stretch the image to fill the container. And that's what we have there, right? So I think that is also clear enough. So background attachment. So that's another thing we need to see. Controls whether the background scrolls with the page or stay fixed, right? So the possible values are scroll, right? And which is the default. Then you can also say fixed. So background stays fixed in place even when you are scrolling. So background attachment fixed. This one, I'm actually using it also in the project. So there's no point explaining it now, right? Because if you check the project, I will point to that. I'm also using it here. That's what I'm using here to achieve this effect. So we are still going to use that. But just be aware that you can set the background attachment. You can set it to fix or scroll. You scroll by default, right? Then what else again? So the shorthand, you can see that now I wrote plenty things, right? But you can just have this shorthand. So instead of setting the background, but instead of setting background color, background image, background attachment, background repeat, you can just set it with this shorthand. You just say background. The first value is the location of the image, right? Then the next one is whether it's repeats or not, background repeats, no repeats. Then the next one is whether the size, you want it to be at center or cover, right? Then the attachment fixed. So you can set it in one line like this instead of writing it out like that. But whichever one is convenient for you, right? But of course, always remember that the best practice is don't repeat yourself. So gradients. So in this project also, I used gradient, right? So you will notice here, just like I explained in the intro, there's a great, this color shade here is darker than what we have here. This light green, this dark green. And if you check here also, you'll notice that I have this radiant gradient here, these green things between yellow and yellow on both sides, right? So that's what we are talking about. So let's also quickly see a brief let's see some concepts around that. So gradient creates a smooth transition between colors, right? It allows you to transition between one color and the other. So we have CSS supports two type of gradient: linear gradient, right? That's you are transitioning between one color and the other on the horizontal, right? Then you have radial, more like circular, right? So linear gradient, for instance, transition between colors in a straight line. That's what we refer to as linear gradient. And an example of that, this would be a linear gradient, right? Because I'm transitioning from this dark shade to this light shade, this linear gradient. This would be an example of a radial gradient, right? Because it's not like I'm transitioning the color from in a straight line, because consider this is radial and it's just pressed out like that, right? So for the linear gradient, but this is how you set it. You just say background, then the linear gradient. The linear gradient is actually a method that expects you to pass the direction as the first argument, then the first color and the second color and other color properties as the other argument. So the direction can be to top, right? Those are the keywords: to top, to bottom, to left, to right. So the direction in which you want the color to be distributed along the straight line, to the top, to the bottom, to the left, to the right. So this is why we said it provides you a lot of flexibility. And that's why when you see some modern design, it's just crazy and beautiful. And that they take advantage of many of these things. But if you're not aware of it, you will just be doing one way, and your design will be predictable, right? So degrees, 40, 45 degree, 90 degree. This is another option that you can set, right? As its value. Example, we can say background linear gradient to right, that's direction, right? So whenever you see a name like this with parentheses, it means it's a function. And usually function will expect argument. The first argument is the direction to right. And I've shown you other possibilities. The other options are the colors you want to use, right? The first color, the second color. Then again, this one I'm using it in the project. So I will do that once I continue with the CSS. Radial gradient also transition between colors in a circular or elliptical pattern, right? And the way you said is instead of using linear gradient, you also use radial gradient. It's a method. So this one, instead of taking the direction, it takes the shape, right? Then the colors that you want to set. For instance, you can say the shape can be circle and it can be eclipse, right? So those are the possible values. You can say radial gradient, circle, then the color value. So you can see that this is pretty simple. You just need to be aware of it. Then gradient transparency. If you want a transparent gradient, it's also possible. So it's just that when you are setting your color, right, instead of using fixed color, you use RGBA so that you can set the transparency. You see how this thing is coming together now, because we've talked about the use of RGBA and the alpha value, right? So this is saying 80% opaque, 80% opaque, right? Opacity. And the same is 80% opacity. So this is not going to be fully the color you expect. When you set 2558751, it's going to be a little bit opaque or transparent, right? So, and it's still linear grading. So I think those are just the things that we need to quickly look at before we continue. So let's continue with what we are doing. On the body section, I'll remove this now, believing that we already have enough background to continue what we are doing, right? So on this side of things, I'm going to be starting with the background color for the body. I'll just say background, right? Now, this is where I'm using what we have learned, right? So this is going to be linear gradient. You see that, you can see that it's a method, right? And this, since it's linear gradient, I told you it can take, the first argument is the direction. I'll just say to bottom, right? To bottom. That's the first thing, to bottom. Then the next thing is the color. So this is going to be ash F5, 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 right? And then the other one is going to be E3 E E3 F2 E3 F2 FD, right? So that's what we have as our background color. And then the color, we are going to set hash 333. And now you know why I'm using just 3 values instead of the 6. This is hexadecimal, but I'm using the shorthand since they are the same values, right? Those are things I've explained. Then line height, right? You can just set 1.6. So that's what I want for the body, right? Body. Then as you are styling, another good habit is to always cultivate the habit of looking at what you are doing. So you can see that our background is not fully white again now, right? So is using that gradient color that we set here, moving from this to this, right? So let's move on to the next thing, which is the header. So for the header section, I'm going to do .app header. Don't forget, these properties are what we have set already on the element, right? When we are typing when we're doing the HTML, right? So this is going to be background. I'm going to use linear to linear gradient, right? Why I'm saying that is if you check what we have here, right? You see that I told you already this a darker shade of green than what we have here. This side is lighter, so we are using linear gradient transitioning between that drawing color, right? So here we're just going to have we're going to have to bottom also, to bottom, right? I'm going to say or let's just say to right. The direction is right actually. To right, then we're going to have hash 00563b 563b, right? So then we're also going to have on the other side hash 8167 84. So if you are wondering where you can get these color codes and all that, you are not cramming, right? So you can search for color. If you search for color gradients, right? So you will see libraries. Okay, not even color gradient. Let's just say CSS gradient generator. So if you want to generate gradients, you can use this library to actually to do that, right? So you can see that we can mix colors from here, right? You can mix colors from here. You can set this, you can change this, right? And the gradient color will be different. And once you are done, you can copy the color code here, right? And you can go ahead to use it. You can see it here. So this is what I'm talking about. So you can just copy this one and then go ahead to use it. So this is what I've linear gradient. This one is using degree, and you can see how it's set, right? So the possibilities are endless. And if you want color shades too, you can come here and see, you can see different color shades, right? Shades of blue. If you click on it, you'll be able to select different shades of blue, right? Aqua. And if I click this now, it's going to generate the color code for me, right? You can see the color code copied, right? Color code copied. So you don't need to cram anything. You just need to be aware. All right. So that's it with that. Then let's set the color here. For the color here, it's going to be white. So here I will use var. I'll use var just to show you how to use what we set already, this variable here, right? And that's the only time I will use it. Then padding. Let's set our padding to 20 pixel, right? Padding to 20 pixel. Then let's set our text align. Let's align the text to the center. Text align to the center. And let's say position is sticky, right? Again, these are some of the things we've talked about, right? When we started CSS, sticky position. If I come here and scroll, see that no matter what, this particular header stays there, right? It stays there. It's not fixed. It's just because I didn't set up value. So if it's sticky, at some point it should move a little bit, right? And at some point it should transition between fixed and scroll. So let me see what I have here. So I have this. By the time I set the top value to 0, then we should observe that effect I just spoke about. There is Z in there, so that it's going to be just set 1000. So it's going to be in order of stacking, right? It's going to be above every other thing on the page, which is very important, because you can see now that if not, this other content will just be above it and cover it, right? So, but because you don't want that behavior, you are saying this one should be stacked like 1000. So no other element will have a stack that is stack order that is as high as that. So this will always be on top and allow the other contents to go underneath, right? So you can see that other contents are going underneath while this one stays on top. So that's what that Z index is meant for. Then we also have box shadow. So we have both shadow, and this is going to be 0 to the horizontal, 2 pixel to the vertical, blurriness of 5 pixel. Then here now you can see that I'm using RGBA, and this is because I want to control the opacity. I want to control the transparency, right? So that I can use the alpha value. That's the flexibility, that the choice of using this over the hexadecimal color. With the hexadecimal value, you cannot change it, right? So, but with this one, you can change it as you want. So 000, that's going to be black, and then I want the black to be actually 0.2, which means 20%, right? That's going to be very, 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 very transparent in terms of, it's going to be like a see-through, right? That's it with that section. If I come back to what we are building and check here, so you can see that we already have this, right? So these guys still need to be styled, and that's where we are going to, but things are shaping out already. So great. And let's see the next thing, which is app header, the H1, right? The H1, let's quickly work on that. So that's going to have font size of 2.5 rem. So this is what we did in the last section. You can check the last section. We explained what rem is all about, right? And all that. So this is just saying 2.5 of the root elements font size, which makes this actually to be responsive. And then we also have font weight. And font weight, we are setting it to this keyword, which is bold, right? And okay, that's that with that. Then let's do app header UL, right? The navigation list inside the app section. That's talking about this navigation. So here, let's just style that. Of course, you should know the trick for this now. List style, right? We don't want those bullets. So list style of none, right? Then we want to say display of flex. Since it's a UL is a div by default. Once a display of it's a UL is having block, is a block element by default. So when you use display of flex, of course, all items you need to move to the horizontal. So you can see that now, right? And those are just little principles. If you know this thing, it's going to be fun, but if you don't know it, you are going to be guessing, right? Which can be frustrating. And then we have justify content. I want them to move to the center, right? So the items will go to the center, as you can see. Then I want them to be spaced apart, right? Well, let's do margin to the top first, so that there's a space between the heading at the top. 0 pixel left and right, 15 pixel, 0 pixel top and bottom, 15 pixel. Okay, mine to the top, let's just do 10 pixel. As simple as that, 10 pixel from the top, right? Then let's do dot app header, the list element inside the app header. So here we just want margin. Of course, from what you have been doing, right? So you can do margin 15 pixel. So if you don't want to do this, right, this will still split them apart. If you don't want to do this, you could have easily used, instead of doing this, right? Instead of doing this, you could have easily used gap here, right? And you just set 20 pixel. So it will still do the same thing, right? You can see now, gap of 20 pixel. So I'll stick with that and just leave this as an option for you, right? Then dot app header, the anchor element there, you can see that it's keeping that default style by the browser. We never started blue, but that's the default style from the browser. So those are some of the things you can add to your reset, but we can do it here, right? Text decoration is what's responsible for that. I want to set it to none, so that underline will be gone, right? Then we want to set the color. So we want to set the color property to ash. Let me use var here, since it's white and we have that already, right? And then we want to set the font size to 500. So instead of using that bold keywords, right, I just want to set this 500. So you see that flexibility again. That's font size. So 500. All right. So away from the font size, we can also set text shadow. Text shadow to 1 pixel, right? 1 pixel. RGBA. So this is different from box shadow, right? This shadow for the text itself. So this is going to be 0, 0 is going to be transparent black, right? 0, 0 green value and 0 blue value. So that's going to give you black, right? Very deep black. But now if you want it to be transparent, just a 0.3, which is 30%, right? So I think that's that with that part. Then when you do .app header anchor pseudo element now, right? Pseudo selector over. So when you hover on that anchor element that is inside the app header, or you're saying text decoration, and now we want to set it to underline, right? So when you hover on it, then the So you can see now, as I hover on it, down that line is there. So perfect. Now we move to the next section, right, without wasting time. But take note of those properties that was talked about and how we are trying to apply them here, right? So here we go to the main section. Just the main section here also. For the main section, let's just have main. We have the main elements, right? Don't forget on the HTML page. So we want to set the padding to 20 pixel, right? So just so that we have breathing space. You can see here, there's a 20 pixel to the edge here, right? For the main content area, I want it to be like that. So and outside that, we want to target the balance overview, right? The balance overview. For the balance overview, if you remember, right, this is it. We are done with this section, right? So this is the balance overview section here, and that's why I want to start. So I'm just going to make use of the classes that I have there. Dot balance balance overview, right? Dot balance overview. We are going to set display to flex, right? If you don't understand Flexbox and how to work with grid, right, you can check those sections on my channel, and I also put the links in the description. Display of flex. Don't forget, if you love this content, right, what you've been watching, help us subscribe, right? It actually helps the channel to grow. Click on the like button also, and also turn on the notification bell so that once I have new contents like this, right, you are among those that will be informed first. All right, let's continue. Display flex, justify content to the center, right? And then we have align items also to the center, right? So everything is centered. Don't forget what we've talked about when it comes to Flexbox. We are not just using it here. We have been building, and everything we are doing, right, is just because one way or the other we've talked about it before, right? So if you are confused about what we are talking about, probably it's because you've missed some sections that we have handled already, right? So if I'm done with that and come back here, you can see that this is already centered based on what I just did there, right? So but now we need to style this thing so that it looks like what it does. You can see that's a background. There's the card has curved edges, right? The color here is different and this is bigger, right? So we need to just target that and finish up with that. So I will do dot balance balance card. So that is that card with the curved edge. I'm just going to put background background of, okay, I think I've used this before. Okay, I don't think so. So let's just say background, and we'll set the color gradient to linear gradients. I'll just say to bottom, right? And this is going to be, okay, let's say to bottom right, and this is going to be hash f ee 58, right? Those are hexadecimal color values, just like we've talked about. Then we have hash fb. That is for the, if you remember now, right, that is for the green, the red, right? FB for the red. Then the next value will be for the green and for the blue, right? So C0 for the blue, right? And the last one for the green, which is 2D. So those are the shades of color that we want here. And if I come back here to, you'll see that background color is, and you can see that this is a color gradient. Here is darker. The yellow here is darker than what we have here, right? If we check here, it should be set already. But you can see that how that this is different. This is bigger. It has inner padding and all that. So all these things that we have, you see that if you just have background now, this thing does not look beautiful. So that curved edge, right? The set of padding and all that, those things, those little things are the things that makes your design come out. So now, having set the background color, let's set the border radius so that we can have curved edges, right? 10 pixel. Let's set to 10 pixel. Then let's set the text. Let's say text align. Let's set it to the center. Text align to the center. Then let's set color to hash 333. Color to hash 333. That's that color, right? The padding to 20 pixels so that there'll be breathing space, right, within the content and the container. Then between the container and the container, let's say box shadow, right? box shadow 0 pixel, 0 pixel horizontal, 4 pixel vertical, 10 pixel blurriness, right? Then RGBA with alpha value. So we are going to set 0 0 0, right? 0 0, then 0. And this is going to be 20%, which is 0.2, right? So we're also going to set the width, right? Just so that we restrict that to 300 pixel. All right, so that's that. If I check it, so you can see now that this comes up, but then this still need to be styled because this is supposed to be bigger than what we have there. So CSS is work actually, but that's why front end is really work. There's a lot to master, right? Writing HTML, writing CSS, JavaScript, making API calls, working with different libraries, right? But it's also fun, and that's why you need to learn it the right way. So we have balance card dot amount. So inside the balance card, there's this class that I have there, amount, right? I just want to style that. I want to say font size should be equal to 2.5 rem mini. So that's relative to the root element. Then we also want font weight of bold. Font weight of bold, right? Then we want color of ash 38 8E 388E3C, right? So that's what we have there. Now, if I come here and check again, so you can see now that this does look like what we are expecting, right? So let's move away from that. So let's see analytics section now, right? Analytics section. So for the analytics section, we just want to say dot analytics, right? For that section, we want to set margin to 20 pixel 0, right? 20 pixel top and bottom. Then we don't want margin to the left and to the right. Dot analytics h2. There's an edit 2 inside that analytics div, right? We want to set margin bottom to 15 pixel, right? And we also want to set the color to hash 4 CAF, right? 50. So that's just what I want for that part. So you can see we have monthly spending for the analytics section. Then this other guy we are yet to start. So okay, let's continue. So let's just say dot analytics dash chart, right? So we want the display to be flex, right? If you notice the analytics chart, this is what we have here. This is the analytic chart. This is the div I'm targeting. You can see it has this color gradient and all that, right? And you can see it has 2 items. I'm just in display of flex here so that it allows me to control these 2 items. Then space between, right? As the case may be, so that these items can stay this way. So display of flex, then align items to the center, right? Let's set gap of 20 pixel. Then let's say background color. So this is more like the fallback now, right? Because I'm still going to set the background gradient. Background color of 00 563B. So if the gradient does not work for whatever reason, that background color will be picked up. Then let's set the background gradient, right? So this is going to be this. Then here we are using radial gradient instead of linear gradient, just to spice things up again. And we are going to be saying the shape. Don't forget what you're expecting there is the shape, the circle. The shape is circle, right? Let's just say circle at top, right? And we want the hash value to be 00. Okay, just this one, right? And then the next one, this next color is going to be FB, C0 FB FP hash FB C02D. So exactly this, right? And then the last one is going to be hash FFA 000, right? So you can see those shades of colors. Then we want to set the border radius. So you notice that that section is also having border radius. So border radius of 12 pixel, right? So if you come back here and check, so you can see that we have this now, and you can see that this is not linear, this is radial. So there's no graph in here yet. Just like I've said, we are going to do that last, right? So away from that, then the chart container, let's just start the chart container so that once it's available, right, it will just pick up what it needs. So let's say dot chart container. So this is, just like I said, this is where we can restrict the width of the container, because if not, it's just going to be too big. So I'm setting the width of the graph to 100. Let's set it to 100%. I'm setting the width to 100%. And I'll now set the max width to 300 pixel. So this is going to help us generate a responsive container where the maximum is going to be fixed. It cannot go beyond 300 pixel, but within that, it's still responsive with width of below that, it's responsive with width of 100%, right? Then we can set the height property too. So we can set the height property to 300 pixel too. So we have a square actually. So then we also have margin. Let's set the margin property to 20 pixel auto, right? 20 pixel auto. Then let's set the display property. This is now us controlling what is going to go into this container. So we know that this container is going to have two graphs, which means two children, right? And we just want to be able to control that with Flexbox. Display of flex, then justify content to the center, right? So justify content to the center, and then let's say align items to the center, right? And then the background. So let's have RGBA. We are going to have so let's have 245 as the red value. Let's have the green value also to be 245. Then we have the other one to be 245. So this is white now, right? Then the alpha value is going to be 80%, 0.8. So transparent light background. Then let's also have border radius to it. Border radius is 10 pixel. So whenever you see a very beautiful design, just know that real work has gone into it, right? This is not simple. You can see that we are dealing with several properties, and it's brain work also. You're not just guessing. 0 pixel, 4 pixel. Maybe that also explains why software engineers are actually well paid, right? Because it's a lot of brain works and all that. 10 pixel, RGBA. Okay, I think we are going to use 0.1 here. So let's just set this to 0.1. So which is like 10%. So, and then let's have padding set to 10 pixel. So I can visualize already the changes perfectly because I've been doing this over and over. But for you, as you are setting the property, you should be checking it, right? So that if I'm doing that, it will be too slow. But you should be checking it for learning sake. So you can relate. As I'm setting these things, I can visualize the behavior on the page without even going there yet, right? So you can see what we have now. So, but for your own case, you should actually be checking it as you are setting it. So there's a communication that is sent to your memory, and you're able to just visualize things better eventually. So away from that, then there is a canvas. Don't forget, we have the canvas. We want to style it. So for the canvas, we're going to set the width to 100%. So now it's good. Don't forget the canvas is inside the container. So that will enforce that the canvas is just going to take the exact width of the container. So the canvas is going to be forced to stay inside the container, and the canvas is the one that is holding the graph item, right? The graph data. So then we also have the height. We also set that to 100%. So what we want to also do is there's this property that we allow to set important, right? So that's just change the flex specificity and say, okay, whatever is supposed to override this, let this take preference, right? So that's what that is saying. So I think that's that with that section, with this section, right? The graph, we'll plug in the graph. Then the last section here is the next section is the transaction section, right? It's a transaction section. So for the transaction section, you want to say transaction dot transaction. We are not in JavaScript. Transactions, right? And then here we have margin. Let's say 20 pixel, top and bottom, 0 left and right. Right? So this what I'm talking about. So we are still not seeing it because it's not visible because this guy is still having list style, right? So here we can now set the dot transaction. There is a div inside transaction, right? So I'm targeting that. I'm going to say display or flex just so that I can control those items there. Then align items to the center. Then we also have justify content to space between, right? Already when you check here, you can see that the view all comes here and the transaction is on the other edge, right? So then let's say dot transaction, the transaction is having heading 2. Let's just type that quickly. Margin bottom of 15 pixel, right? 15 pixel. Then I think that should be the color. Let's set the color to hash 4CA, right? F50. So I think that's that with that. Then dot transactions again, the anchor element inside there, we want to style in and give it font weight of 700, right? And then I'm still going to keep this color. So you can see that we're already repeating this color now, but if we had set it here as a variable, we'll be able to reuse it over and over again. So that is much more preferred. I'm just doing this because of time, right? So you can see now that the color has been applied. So let's style the list element. You can see that this is the list items, groceries, the amount. So we want to use Flexbox to actually style it so that the groceries, the name of the grocery can be on one side, the amount can be on the other side, just like we have here, right? Just like we have here. So that should be transaction UL, right? Dot transactions. Inside there we have a UL, right? And that UL we want to say list style of none. This style of none, right? That is going to take away that those styles, those bullet styles that we have. Then we have border of 1 pixel solid. Then the color is hash DGD, right? That just ensures that we have those. Can you see this line? Horizontal line, this border line, right? Around this content here. That's why I say you should be checking it as you are typing. Then we also have border radius, so that we have that curved edge of 10 pixel. 10 pixel. Then we have background of hash FFF, right? Then we have padding. We have padding of 15 pixel. Then we have box shadow of 0, 2 pixel, 5 pixel blurriness, RBGA. So RBGA of 0.1. Let me just set RBGA of 0.1. All right, so that's what we have there, and you can see that this is shaping up. We set a shadow, and that is because of that shadow that this came out like this. And you can see that this is staying on that background that we set on the body, right? So you can see that there's a difference between this now and this gradient background that we set here on the body, which is more like sky blue, right? So so let's start with the transaction, the list item inside the transaction. To let's target that line. So display of flex, right? Display of flex. So you can see that flex is very, very useful. That's why we took time to explain it in one section. Content space, space between, right? That will just make those items inside the list, right? Those two span elements that I have inside the list to be spaced apart, is what I'm saying. Right? If you come to the transaction section, so inside the list element, you have two children, this and this. So display of justified content or space between, we just make sure that these two items are spaced apart, right? And so we have padding. Let's set the padding to 10 pixel left and right, 10 pixel top and bottom, 0 left and right. Then border. So we are using the same border, right? This. So I think that's that. Then the last part, we don't want the border bottom. So there's a way we can remove that. Const transactions, right? Dot transactions are kept saying const. So the list element, the last child. So this is a pseudo selector, right? Again, these are the stuff that we've discussed on that CSS series. Border bottom, we'll set this to none, right? Border bottom of none. Then we have dot transactions, li. Okay, dot transaction. Let's just do this once. Dot expense. Don't forget that I mentioned this, right? Just so that we can know whether it's an expense or it's an income. So we're going to set the color to hash D3, something green, right? Hash D3 or red, hash D3 2F2F. Right? You can set the font weight so that it will be bolder. Font weight to bold. Then I'm going to do the same thing, but for income. So when it's a class of income, right? We don't want this to be red, so this will be something green, and this is going to be hash 3.8, hash 3.8, 8E3C. Yeah. So I think those are just the things that we need to set here. And if you come here, right, you can see that is here already. Right? So this is how you practice these things. And if you can do these little screens, right? By the time you are given a project to handle, it's the same principle you used to do. Handle them screen by screen. Before you know it, you are done with 40 screens, 50 screens, and you are done, right? So apart from this, let's also look at the final section here, which is the fixed fixed background I've talked about. Let's also set that. That's going to be dot fixed background, right? And we're going to just have position here set to relative. That is because we are going to have so take note of this, right? So that you know how to do this also. Here, don't forget that we have this overlay. This overlay is staying on top of this background, and this is a div. Ordinarily, it's not supposed to be inside there, so it's just supposed to be somewhere here next to this one. But if you understand how relatives work, right? Positioning works, relatives, absolute, and all that. So the moment we set relative on this, and then on this inner div, we set absolute. This guy is now going to reference this div, and by that way, we can be able to center it and all that. And that's what I'm just trying to do here. So that fixed background, right, section is position relative. Then the background itself. So okay, the background. Don't forget the background. Like I said, you can set the URL, right? And here I'm just going to set it to think I'm here to close it, right? I'll just copy the link here and use it. So set it to this. Great. So then we can set other background properties as the case may be, right? Let's just do inline for this one, right? Background. Then here I told you about the shorthand now, right? Let's set no repeats. That's for the next line, just so that you understand how to use the shorthand. Then here we want center, right? That's the position, and also center, right? Just so that the item stays at the center. The background is made to be at the center, right, of the section. Then we want the background size. Let's say the background size specifically to cover. Don't forget I've explained what cover. I've shown you what cover and contain will be like. Then the background attachment, which is what will give us that behavior. Background attachment, we want to set it to fixed, right? One set to fixed. Then the color here, want to set it to no inheritance. We also come in here so that the contents that are within this particular div, right, their color is going to be white. If you don't have any color set for them specifically, so, right, they're just going to inherit that from their current parents. Text align to the center. Then we also have padding of 80 pixel, 20 pixel, right? 80 pixel, 20 pixel. We have height of 300 pixel, right? So this is just the container, right? So for that section, this is what I'm saying. So if you come back here, you can see that we already have this, right? And it's properly set. So this is the overlay. This is supposed to be the overlay, right? And we are going to need to style it for it to stay properly. So, and okay, I think the way I even set up the div is, let me see, the div is inside. Where is it here? Okay, yeah. So the div is actually even inside this particular section. So absolute, we don't need to do anything absolute here because this is already seated inside the section. Just that we are using CSS to add background image underneath it, and this stays, right? Of course, we can now center this with display flex and all that. So the next thing here is dot fixed background, right? Dot fixed background dot content that overlay, right? And here we just want to set the background to we'll set the color, we'll set color to RGBA. Let's use 0.5, which is 50%, right? And let's set padding to 20 pixel. I'm setting that background overlay. I'm setting that transparent background because consider that this here is transparent and it's a see-through. You can see through what is underneath, right? And again, it allows you to see the text on it. So that's what I'm trying to do here with this value. So padding of 20 pixel. Then we want border radius of 10 pixel, just so that we have that curved edge, right, around the box. Then we have display of inline block. All right, so that's that. If you come here now, so you can see that we have that, right? Dot fixed background h2. So this is a descendant selector, the h2 that is inside the div with a class of fixed background. Font size, let's say that's to 2 rem, right? And then the margin bottom to 10 pixel. All right, great. Then dot fixed. So we also have paragraph inside, right? Using pseudo selector to descendant selector. Font size for the paragraph is going to be 1.2 rem, right? And also the margin is going to be 0, right? 0. Although we don't need to set that because I think we already did the reset, right? Which will still work. So you can see that, yeah, we have this now. So when you see a simple design like this, you see that a lot of principle went into it. It's not just copy and paste. So these are some of the things that you don't find around and you'll be confused afterward. But now that you have the concept, you have explanation to everything that is happening, you just need to pay attention to these things that build. You now become a skill in your hand. You'll be able to do anything with it, right? Let's start the last part now, which is the footer section, right? The footer. So that should dot app footer. That should be pretty straightforward. .app footer, we want to set the background. The background is just going to be like what we set on the other section here, right? This linear gradients color. So there's a lot that you've picked here today. You've picked a lot. You've picked how to set colors in different ways, whether you're dealing with background, whether you're dealing with gradients, whether you're dealing with proper setting of color values, right? And we are going to set the color to var white, right? So that the text color in that section will be white. Then the text align, setting the text align property to center. Text align to center. Then padding, just so that there's breathing space between the content and the container, 15 pixel. 15 pixel. Then margin to the top, margin to the top of 20 pixel, right? Then let's do .app footer. There is an anchor element inside there, right? We want to set the color also to var white, right? Then the text decoration, we want to remove it. Text decoration to none, right? Then we want to set the margin to 0.5 pixel, right? Then the last style here is going to be .app footer A. When you hover, so that's pseudo selector, not pseudo element selector, right? It's a pseudo class selector. So you are selecting this particular element, right? And you are saying when it is over on, and you want the text decoration to be underlined, yeah. So that's it, and you can see that this is neatly done, right? So it's not difficult. You just need to understand what is going on and be able to process it gradually. So you must be patient with yourself as you do all these things, right? Eventually, it will be easier. So in order to wrap this up now, let's bring in the graph, right? So in order to bring in the graph, we are going to be using a library, like I've said. Let's just check CDN, this library, right? CDN GS Deliver. So this is the library we are using, a free CDN for open source projects, right? Optimized for GS and EMS delivery from NPM. So this just allows us to get what we want to get done, right, from a CDN, right? And if you do need to see the package itself, right, via their website, you can just go to Chat.js, right? Once you click on Chat.js, you're going to see this open source HTML5 Chat.js for website. And once you click on it, you're going to be able to see different charts, right? And you can see samples. Once you click on samples, you're going to see sample charts and actually how to work with them. So you can see here, if I click on line chart and click on this, so can you see if you want something like this, that's where you get started. And you can see the config here, the setup is here, right? Where the data, what data should look like and everything they're supposed to do. I will show you how to set it up, but if you walk through this also, you'll be able to do that. So this for line chart, right? You can also have other type of charts. Bar chart, for instance, you can also have stuff like this and this and this. So you get that gist. Area charts here. So you have a lot of stuff here. We also have donuts, pie charts, and all that. So let's plug into this and use it, right? What I will do. So inside the HTML, let me just connect to the library at the top, right? So that we can use it. That's how to connect to the library, right? Underneath here, I'll just connect to the library. Usually you use scripts, right? Because we've not done JavaScript, but you are not going to be doing much of JavaScript. It's just that since it's a JavaScript implementation, right? It needs to go into that script tag, right? Which is for JavaScript. And for this, you're going to point to the source SRC. And here I'm just going to say HTTPS, right? Which is that website I just showed you, CDN, right? CDN.js deliver VR, no E, right? .net. So this must be correct actually. If it's not correct, then it won't work. npm /chat, right? .js. So that is the library we are connecting to confirm that this is actually correct, right? This is the library. So once you have done that, then the next thing is to actually plug in Don't forget that here under the analytics section, I already have ID that helps me target the canvas. This is expense chart canvas, and this is spending trend chart canvas. So I just need to use JavaScript to target this and pull in my data into it. So I need to prepare that, right? And what I'll just do is that under here, outside the body, right? Outside the body, or down here before, I can just put just a script section, right? And here we're just going to have, I'm going to say script, right? So here you will not pass any source. You just want to run JavaScript file. Just say here we say pie chart, right? For expense breakdown. So underneath here, we are going to have const. Don't worry about this, because if you don't know JavaScript, you may actually struggle with it. I'll just try to explain what is going on. And that's why you should look out for my JavaScript section once I start, right? So document, once you are in the JavaScript world, right? JavaScript actually can convert your document, your HTML document, into JavaScript object notations that you can now interact with like a programming interface, right? So here we are saying that documents, which is available globally, right? So documents this document has a bunch of methods on it, as you will see. So you might not know about all this, but the one I'm looking for is get element by ID, because you can see that the elements into which I want to insert the graph, right, is already here with ID, right? So that method allows me to actually target those ID, and I'm going to point to the name of the ID. So this one is expense chart. So the name must be correct. It must be exactly what you have here. If it's not correct, it will not work, right? Because it will not be able to see what you want to target. So this is expenses chart, right? Just copy so that, okay, yeah, you can see now that it would have been wrong. So expenses chart. So this is going to actually, we want to get context, and actually we want to draw. So after getting that element, we want to now do dot get context. Get context, right? And I'm just going to pass 2D. So actually we want to draw. So because we want to do that, we'll have to set up that way. So document.get elements by ID, expenses chart, right? Then outside that, we just do dot get context. So that's going to give us access to that particular element. We can now start writing into it. So what we do is we do new chart. So because we already import that library at the top of our application here, right? We have access to this class chart, and this is what we call class instantiation. So don't worry about that if you don't understand. Again, that's JavaScript. This function is expecting the first argument to be the context. So context 1, which is the canvas we want to draw into, right? Then the second argument has to do with our configuration. So under here, we can set stuffs, we can set type, right? You can set type and just set it to pi. Don't forget that here I was showing you that library here. And if you check here also, you'll see what I'm talking about. If you come here and check here. So can you see type? This one is line. Then you have data, you have options and all that. So that's what I'm trying to set here. So we have pi. We are just passing those configurations into the canvas, into this instance of chart, right? Then with a reference to the canvas to which you want to pass this configuration. So type of pi, then the data value, the data here is going to be an object, right, with labels. So don't forget every graph is going to have labels, which will be an array. And here I just want rent. Let's say rent. Then I want the next one to be groceries. Then also utilities, right? Then we also want transport. Then lastly, let's just say entertainment, right? So those are the labels. So outside the label, inside that data is an object. You have the label is an array of what will be on the label. Then we want the data sets, right? And this is also going to be an array. Don't worry if you don't know what an array is, just allow you to list data, right? So with different types, list of data with different types can be list of items, list of objects, list of a string. This one is list of strings now, right? We also have list of numbers and all that. So like I said, once we go into JavaScript proper, you have proper understanding of what is going on there. So inside there, I'm going to have object and I'm going to have a data, right? And I'm going to have an array. Here I will just pass 500 and I'll pass 300. So these are the text values I'm passing. And I'll pass 200 and I'll pass 100, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll pass 150. How many items? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we also have 5 data to go with that. So so once we have that set up in the form of the data, we now want to set the background color, right? After data, we can set the background color. All these things are in the library that I just showed you, right? They are here. So you can see here options. The data is not, if you check here, you see the data. So you can see border color, background color, data here is an array, you can see the label and all that. So here we just set some colors, right? I don't want this to be long. How can I speed this up? Right. I'll just do this one. The other one, I think I'll just bring it in and explain. Okay, let me just bring it in and explain. This is getting long, right? So you can see that I brought in that configuration, right, so that you can see again. So just see new chart, then context 1, then this object in there, and the configuration is there. So if you do want to type it out, you can also do that, right? So I didn't want to keep typing this while you watch me. It can be boring. So you can see these configurations, right? You can set, and you can also make sure you have to be careful here, because if you don't set this very well, the graph will not show, right? So just make sure that you take time to type this out. Let me show you again from here, all right? And hold that. Or you can also make use of this library and work with it. So you can see that this is showing now, right? This is showing here. So let me also bring in the second one. All right, so you can also see that the second one, which is a line chart now, is also similar to that one, document.get element by ID. So that targets that canvas with a class of spending trend chart, right? Then we do dot get context to D. So this allows us to actually present the 3D, right? A canvas drawing platform, right? That we can pass to this chart class instance, right? And once you do that, you just set your configurations. The type here is line. The first one was pie chart. This one is line. Then the data is the same thing. It has label, January, February, March, April, May. The data set. Inside the data set, we have an object with label, the data that goes in there, the field, the background color, the border color, tension. You cannot exhaust the library, right? Possibilities are here, many things. So you just need to walk through. I'm just showing you how to use it. But there are times that you're working on projects, you naturally need to walk through this library yourself and see other things that you can actually do with it. So if you check this now, you can see that this graph is now here. So yeah, let me show you again so that if you want to really type through, right, you can see here. Right? So this is what I have there. So you can also type that and take your time and master what is going on. So yeah, in this project, if you've come this far, you've tried, right? We've done a lot today. We've seen how to work with colors, how to work with background. We've seen how to work with color gradients. Then lastly, we've seen how to also work with graphs. We didn't just look at that. We also demo it using a project, right? And this is typical of what we have on the screen in a professional work, right? If I'm given a task, this is not something special from what I've done on a normal professional project. So if you have been able to do this, right, I must congratulate you. You are moving in the right direction. Don't forget once again to subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow. Then also don't forget to like, right, this particular content, and don't also forget to turn on your notification, right, so that you can be the first to be notified once I have my next video. Thank you very much. See you in the next section.